Hey guys, Jim here. Time to get into Guest Blade episode number 25. And tonight we're going to be looking at two really amazing knives from a gentleman named Ray Laconico. And both of these knives are going to be from the Blast model that he makes. Before we get into the knives, let's give a quick thank you to a gentleman named Ben who sent these in. Actually, he had kind of just approached me cold, sent me an email and said, hey, I got a whole bunch of Ray Laconicos. You really need to experience these knives. They're amazing. They're great flippers. They're just phenomenal build quality. And I'd love to share some of these with you. And he actually sent me a whole list. I think he has like 8 or 9. And he sent me a whole list. And the one that jumped out at me the most was this one. I said, I got to experience that one. The other ones are great. Just pick one and that'd be great. I said, but I have to experience the IBFL. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put his information in the bottom down in the description so you can get to know the person who donated these. But let's get into the knives. Super quality build knives. And I've been curious about Laconicos for a while now. He makes a lot of different models, but it really is the Blast that you seem to hear about the most often. It's a larger size knife. You're looking at a 4-inch blade. And these are actually the same knife, just built differently. They're both in the Blast series. This is a standard Blast. I think it's the Blast 2 as a matter of fact. And this one, it's based off of the Blast but done differently. And when I contacted Ray, he says it's just a variant of the blade shape in a Blast 2. So it doesn't carry a different name or anything else. But the way it's built is different. It's an integral bolstered frame lock. So here you've got more of a standard build in all carbon fiber scales with the titanium liners and of course your liner lock. With this one, you have a double bolstered look with the lightning strike carbon fiber with the silver wire that is laid into it, and it's actually a bolster lock. So it's basically, if you didn't have this scale here, this would be a frame lock. But by putting the scale over it and creating the over travel stop, you basically have what we like to call a bolster lock. Bolster lock right now is my personal favorite. It gives me the same strength and predictability that a frame lock gives me, but it allows me to have something decorative on both sides of the knife. I really dig that. Because when you get into a frame lock, you're not going to have anything on this side. It's just going to be your titanium, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you've got a beautiful presentation side with a nice inlay, it's really cool to have a matching inlay on the other side. So I think the thing that people are most curious about with the Blast is you look at the name and go, okay, it's called the Blast. How's the flipping action? Does it come blasting out of the handles? And what I've got here are two really great examples, but they're really unique. They're different from one another. When I'm playing with this version, the detent is not extraordinarily strong. If I just rock back on it, it opens up nicely, but nothing particularly wow about it. Just a nice quality flipper. But if I push button it a little bit, changes the characteristics a little bit. So he's built the flipper tab in a way, it's actually set behind the pivot, that allows you to open this however you want. Now you could also open it with the thumb stud as well, and you'll actually get slightly faster action out of the thumb stud. Now the thumb stud actually works as the blade stop in the both the closed and in the open position. You'll see it's actually contacting the titanium liners as well as the carbon fiber. And when you open it up, you'll see it's doing the same thing up top. So Ray has designed that to be your blade stop in both directions. But when you get into this model, oh, it's a little different. Detent is a little bit stronger, and it has a significantly different opening because of that. Everything else is the same. They're both running on the same cage bearing system on the pivots. So I'm going to assume it's like the GTC bearings. Same exact pivot, same thumb stud placement for your blade stop, and the same geometry from the pivot to the flipper tab. There's also a significant difference in how they sound, and for whatever reason, that makes a big deal to some of us. Like when I fire open my Q36, that makes a sound unlike anything else, and it gets me a little moist. This one, you hear a definite thud, and I think what happens when you take the titanium and cover it with another material like carbon fiber, it kind of deadens the reverberation just a little bit, whereas when it's nothing but titanium sticking out, you hear that metallic ka-chunk. And that may also be due to the fact that your blade stops here are engaging only titanium, whereas on this one, they're engaging titanium and carbon fiber at the same time. You've also got a larger surface contact between the bolster lock and the liner lock. So you're hearing that slam into place as well. Both sounds are nice, but there is a distinction between them. So let's go into the carbon fiber one first. Let's talk about the overall fitment, the quality, and the whole, is it worth it to chase these down? Because the only downside I see to wanting any Laconico is the fact that you can't buy them. I did talk to Ray, and he says, you know, my books are closed. I don't really anticipate any time that I'm going to be opening them. And the only time I really have any for sale is in my sub forum on the USN. So every now and then he'll put up, I think it's usually, if I'm not mistaken, they're usually a lottery system. He may also be doing open bid knives as well, I'm not sure. So the only way you're realistically going to get one is on the secondary market. So that means you're going to pay more, and you've got to wait until one becomes available. So is it worth it? The money that you're going to spend? Well, let's take a nice good look here. Let's look at the fitment of the components. Nice and clean. Everything is as it should be. Only slightly detectable from one material to the next. Carbon fiber, titanium, looks like G10 for the back spacer, then back to titanium and carbon fiber again. So it's only mildly detectable going from one to the other. You do have a nice lanyard hole in here, which I find convenient. Standard basic spring clip, no major fanfare there. It works as intended, but it's nothing particularly fancy. He's done a really clean job of the blasting on all the titanium surfaces. Does a nice job with matching up at least the color tones from titanium to steel. And then so what he's done here, he's got a nice blasting, but he's also done a light stone wash over it as well. Now, a lot of times when you get into a fully bead blasted steel knife, or blade I should say, what's going to happen is from the very first time you use it, you're going to mark it up, and then it looks old and beat up. When you put the stone wash in there, it's going to help mask those minor everyday wear marks and scratches. So I'm a big fan of stone washing. The quality of the action, fantastic. As you see, it's very smooth. The blade will fall under its own weight once you get it past the detent. The alignment of everything is very, very nicely done. You'll notice the somewhat tight tolerances between the blade and the frame. So everything was made exacting within this knife. Now here's the funny thing. I actually had to measure this blade because I didn't believe it was 4 inches. Because when I've held the knife both closed and open, it didn't seem that large. Because he is using every bit of available space in this frame to fold the blade into. So you don't have a lot of overhang here, so you don't have a particularly huge handle. Normally on a 4-inch knife, you're going to have a good 4 1/4 to 4.5 inch handle, maybe even a 5-inch handle. So you've got this, very large handle to accommodate that large blade. And he has snugged everything in there nicely. I think overall as an EDC, this would be an amazing choice. It has the same kind of feel in the hand as the zero tolerance, what is it, the 0560 and 561, the Hinderer designs with the full carbon fiber. Kind of has that same feel to it, the way it's been swelled out and rounded off and contoured. but it's obviously a much higher degree of quality. I mean, you are buying a custom knife here. Is this worth the money? Absolutely. I would love to carry this knife on a daily basis. This particular variation, again, it doesn't scream, oh my God, look at me, I'm a full house custom knife. That should be an extreme amount of money, but it does what it needs to do. It is a really nice, I love this harpoon style blade. That false top edge there, that swedge was done really nicely, because what he's done is he's brought the swedge up, but then he's flattened it out toward the nose. And there are not a lot of makers that are doing that. They'll take that harpoon tip all the way down to the tip of the blade, and instead, it's almost like a fin from here to here, and then it flattens out at the nose. He put a lot of time into designing that and a lot of time into grinding this, and did a nice precision job of grinding it. Let's take a look at the top side diamond, and you'll see a nice balance from one side, the grind over here, to the grind on the other side. It is fairly sharp. It's not razor blade sharp, but it is certainly acceptable for an everyday EDC. And this is going to be a fairly lightweight knife because you have somewhat thin, I don't want to call them thin, but obviously the titanium frame on here is thinner than if it was just a standard frame lock or the bolster lock. So somewhat thin titanium, which reduces weight, and then everything else is carbon fiber. Carbon fiber weighs almost nothing, so this is a great, for a 4-incher, that's a nice EDC. Then we get into this. Of the two, this is my favorite. This screams custom. What he's done on this, nice combination of materials. For your two scales, you've got the silver wire lightning strike carbon fiber, which is now my favorite. I prefer this over the copper wire, the standard lightning strike carbon fiber. I do hear that it's easier to work with, easier to finish. And the copper wire, as we know, sometimes pokes out and it can be very, very pokey. This is an aluminum wire. It's much softer, and I think it's a lot easier to work with. I've really never had any experience with one poking out and bothering me. We have that on both sides. The 6AL4V titanium frames are done in a almost a bronze anodizing. It's like a mellow bronze. Then, of course, they were blasted to give you that matte look, and then he did a light stone wash over that to smooth it to the touch. I actually just had a knife delivered to me that was built the same way. We did the bead blasting to give the matte finish, but I didn't want the rough finish, so it was then lightly tumbled, so you have a smoother finish to it. And it brings out little flecks of the bronze color in the stone wash scratches. And there we have the bolster lock on this side. There's the engagement. Very early lockup, but still very solid. He's done a great job contouring all this to match. From the blade tang all the way down into this contour. He's made everything comfortable to the touch. There are no sharp edges as you're disengaging the lock. The height of the carbon fiber is the right height against the lock. No extra protrusions like we do see sometimes. Now, whereas the Blast 2 had the rounded and contoured frame, this does not. This is a slab-sided knife, so everything is completely flat. He's done some nice milling here. And that really helps to offset and give you more of that true bolstered look. And this is my favorite kind of bolstered knife, by the way, and there are two different ways you can make a bolstered knife. You can take your titanium, you can mill out a large area, then inset your inlay, whatever that's going to be, into that, and the frame itself creates the bolster, or you can do this and you can add a bolster cap on top of it, and that's one of the ways that you can do a hidden pivot. And I've got knives like that. My Q36 is like that. I have other knives like that. I'd rather see one uniform material creating that bolster. I think it's a cleaner and honestly more luxurious and more expensive look to it. He's taken the back spacer here instead of going all the way up. And this is actually only a little bit longer. This is about 1/3 of the way up. He has shortened the back spacer on here and used, again, the lightning strike carbon fiber. Very nicely done. Only one little void in there. And that, as many of you have watched my videos for a while know, I love that cleaner pass-through design by not having a big backspacer. It's easier to keep things clean in here without having to take the knife apart to get dirt and sand and pocket lint and things like that out of it. The action on this one is dreamy. This is very much like the Recenti Snafu that I reviewed. And you got to realize that Snafu costs more. Well, okay, it's secondary market pricing. You'll pay more. This has a solid feel to it. It is a little bit heavier than this one. Not by a lot, not by as much as you might think. There's probably maybe a 1/2 to 3/4 ounce difference between the two. This will carry slimmer in the pocket, being a slab-sided knife. Same style of standard spring clip. Again, you guys know how I am. There's nothing wrong with it. But aesthetically, if I'm going to spend this much money on a knife where so much attention to detail has been paid to how good it looks, there should be a clip that complements that overall look. Now, it may be possible that he could offer 3-dimensional milled clips. I don't know this for certain. These are the only 2 Laconicos I've ever had in my hands. So that may be an option. But the way these were delivered, standard spring clips, kind of boring for what I think is a very clean and well-designed knife overall. I like his pivots. It's very utilitarian on this side. Got a little bit of a custom look going on over here. He's done a great job lining everything up, giving you clean lines, a nice flow of design throughout the whole knife. And as you see, the blade style is a bit different. More of a clip point on this one. Very exaggerated top swedge on here. And I don't know what it is, but I really love knives with a very prominent top swedge. Love the look of it. He has given you a little bit of a choil up here, but the blade is sharp right there, so you would want to be really careful engaging that. I probably wouldn't. So you've got some nice thumb holds here. You've got an upswept thumb ramp with a really good jimping, by the way. The jimping on this, it's not so rough that it tears your skin up, but it definitely grabs. You feel it grab you. I didn't really try. Oh yeah, pretty much the exact same. It's a little bit smoother here, and that may be from all the processes that this blade went through for the finish. Whereas this is just a beautiful satin on the flats, beautiful satin on the top swedge, and we have a vertical satin on the primary bevel, and a little bit of a mirror to the secondary bevel. And this is almost like a belt finish, where it wants to start going toward mirror, but you can still see the striations from the grinder. Overall, very handsome, very well balanced, by the way. This knife has an incredible balance right at the pivot there. So what I would say is this: if you've been searching one for a long time and you're thinking to yourself, oh, should I keep searching? Is it really worth it? There are so many knives out there that, you know, are not too dissimilar. These are not earth-shattering, groundbreakingly different designs here. And that's not what they were meant to be. It's meant to be a really great EDC. I look at them as being a somewhat tactical style knife as well. Yeah, I would say it's worth it. I would say if you can find one within your comfort zone for spending, absolutely buy it. I can't find a thing about these that I would say that I don't like. Are there certain maybe design elements or small little things that I would change? Sure, but we're all like that, you know, just to kind of personalize it. But there's not a single misstep on either one of these knives. And you guys know I can be particularly harsh when it comes to, if there's a flaw, I'm going to call it out. And I just don't see one here. I think they fit in the hand great. The ergonomics are wonderful for what each type of knife is. This one is more comfortable in the hand because, again, with that contouring there, it kind of gives you a very slight swell in the middle. Everything is smooth to the touch except where it doesn't need to be, which is the jimping along the thumb ramp. I think on this one I would have loved to have seen a little bit of fine jimping right back here and maybe right back here. But, you know, that's going to take a different look into the knife. It's going to make it look a bit more aggressive, and that may not have been his intent. So if I were looking for an everyday EDC that had a really nice flipping action, I would certainly look at a Blast. I would love to be able to handle the proposed knife beforehand, just because I am seeing a variance in the detent strength between the two. And I don't know if that's because you may have a little bit more lock bar pressure on this and less pressure with that detent ball engaging the blade. Not really too certain. But as we know, typically, and this is not always, but typically, a frame lock, or in this case a bolster lock, may generally have a stronger feel of a detent. Not necessarily as the detent as it would naturally engage the detent hole, but the pressure it's being applied to it has a greater possibility of being stronger because of the thicker titanium and the extra bit of pressure that it's applying with that detent. So whichever way you go, I got to tell you, Ray blew my mind. Now, what sucks about it is, and I hate this, when I find a knife that I really like, and this one right here is it for me. When I find a knife that I really like, and then I find out the maker isn't taking any orders, and they're damn near impossible to get, yeah, it's frustrating. It really is. Because now I've had a chance to play with them. I've had these for about 2 weeks, actually. I haven't had much time to do videos, so Ben, I apologize. And I've played with this one a lot. This one I have, but this one a lot. And I really like the feel of it. Sad thing is, I'm probably not going to own one anytime in the near future unless I get really lucky and somebody flips one on a forum. All right, guys, I'm going to let it go at this, just about 22 minutes in. Thank you so much for watching. There are more Guest Blade episodes coming very soon, including a Jeremy Marsh Vanquish. Ooh, that's going to be lots of fun. I will see you guys next time.